これでいいのか。はい、ということで、こんにちは、こんばんは、白蟻くいなです。4日ぶりだ。4日ぶりの YouTube 配信なんですけれども、今日は、ランダムゲームの枠ね。これ読み方がわからない。ジェニタルジャスティング。いうね、ちょっと絞れた要素が強めなゲームなんですけれども、そちらをやっていこうと思います。シールくん、この人もこんばんは。ということで、やっていきましょう。ちょっと私を小さく。毎回これ私を小さくする。今回何も見てないんだよね。ということで、ちょっとどうなるか。やだな。ということで、今回コントローラーの方で操作していきたいと思います。で、オンラインマルチプレイではなく、ストーリーモードの方やっていきたいと思います。なぎさん、チンやばいでしょ。このさ、左上にあるティッシュがいい味醸し出してるよね。ということで、ストーリーモードいきます。2ゲーム。日本語訳がなくて、このゲーム。なんかちょっとところどころわかんないかもしれないけど。What's the rest? はい。ね。これがそう。上に行け？下に行け？こうか。A で持ち上げる。待って。どういうこと？どこで食べんのこれ？ねえ、そっちで食べるんだ。こうか。てか、種をさ、として。サンドボックス砂場に行け。YouTube 的に。これでおなら出せる。やばいって。やばい。キモい。
John woke to the shrill cry of his alarm clock and lay there, rigid, his usual morning condition. But there was another reason John couldn't get out of bed. It was the weight. A weight that had nothing to do with his muscles or fat or sweaty blankets. John was weighed down by a piece of paper. The invitation to his high school reunion. From across the years, the words he'd heard in the schoolyard were still clear. You're a loser. No one will ever love you.
頭を変えられるのか。なるほどね。壊れた。全部壊れた。
John threw on an outfit. He didn't feel comfortable wandering around his home naked. ちょっとなんかお気に入りの服を見つけよう。これがノーマル。これはね、シンプルすぎるね。 John needed to shower and wash off the sweaty stink of desperate sadness.
これを持って
Most people would shower, then dress, but John was running late.
あ、待っ
They
て待っ
say
て
cleanliness is next to godliness.
待って
But
マ
at
ジで
that
全
moment,
然切れちゃった
cleanliness was next to his prostate.
まずいってまずいってどうしようあ、出たえ、これであで歯を磨けかあ、ね、で入っちゃった待って待って待ってあキモいってこれ歯磨き粉つけんでよかったん、ね、でも正直な話先っぽの方ちゃんと洗った方がいいと思うよな、お尻じゃなくて。やめましょうねこういう話はね。
John had 3 months until the reunion to turn his life around. First, he needed to clean up.
クリーンディッシュ皿洗え。
John called it
何これ
his study, but it was basically for games.
これさ
Mostly porn.
これ入るかな、入ったあ、手でつけられる。なんかビデオがある。わ、これ見たい。めっちゃ見てー。あ、ね、ゴキブリだ。いえ。くれ。かんのんかな。かんのんかな、これ。かんのんかな。かんや。まあいいや。クリーン一心だから。お皿を。食洗。あ。テイクケーキオブ人がケーキってどれ？これチーズだよね。ケーキこれ？
The only reason he'd ordered so much
これじゃない
takeout
よね。
was because Delilah, the delivery peen,
スパ
made him feel butterflies in his testicles.
やめて入っちゃった。これも入んのかな？あ、入った。え、これは入った。出た。これは
If John took the
これ入んない
toaster
の？
to the shower, he wouldn't
これは
have to
入らない
worry
の？
about the reunion. John suddenly realized the time. Distracted by his new drive to improve his
待
life,
ってなんか出てるなんか出てるなんか出
he
てる
needed
ね。
to hurry or he'd miss the bus to work.
出ちゃったけどこれ。あ、そこは刺さっても痛くないんだ。待って、痛い。
John had left his apartment late,
キャッ
but if he caught the express
Bus.
bus, he might make it to work
待
on
って、ごめん。
time. John didn't really like his job, but it had 2 qualities
ちょっと
in
待って。
its favor. One, he could pay
待って、
his
加速
rent,
するこれ。
and 2, Barbara.
これ加速する。これ加
Currently
速する。
John's top candidate
心なしか
for
加
his
速してる
reunion
気が
day.
する。いいぞこれ。
John noticed a moderately attractive peen waiting at the stop.
ここで待ってればいいのかな。
He was tempted to talk to her.
カインコン。何これ？ゲーム。ストライよし。入れる？入った。会
The
社？
office hummed with cold
これ
fluorescent
水とか
lighting.
さ、これ
The
気になる
air
かな。
was cold and stale,
あ、出た。
lifeless. How long had John worked here?
サボテン絶対この世界危険でしょ。フレッシュコープ。ねねねねねねね。
John was late, but he
あかんの？
felt daring.
あ、
He
いた。
could sneak into the office through
何
the
も入ってない。
archives,
あ、
or he could
やめて。
stroll through the front entrance with enough confidence
あ、壊しちゃ
to
った。
bluff his boss.
ボスのところ行ったってことかな。え、これ持ってんの？あ！やべ、やべ、ちょっと、あいだー！いやめっちゃ好きだわ、これ。
John decided
あ、違う違う
to
違う
creep
違う
in
違
through
う
the
違う。
archives.
いけ！
Despite the obvious flaws, John thought it was a good plan and not a recipe for
なんか死んで
humiliation.
る。死んでるけど、大丈夫なんかな？あ、ピザがあるよ。食べれるのかな？あ、食べた。食べた。食べれるんだ。あ、え？入れる。ちゃんと頭から入ろう。ねねねねねねね。やばいって。
Everyone else was hard at work, grinding away.
だからなんか一人だけさ、めちゃめちゃさ、
Get away with this.
ボコボコのやついるけど、これ大丈夫や。
The boss. He homed in on John, deluging him with spit and buzzwords. The boss ran out of synonyms for John's failings and gave him an ultimatum. Barbara would definitely not be interested in dating John if he was unemployed. He had to get to the quality
やめてや
assurance
めて、突っかかっ
department.
ちゃう、突っかかっちゃう。とりあえず刺しとくか。あ、刺さんかった。刺さんかった。飛んでった。これ押せばいいのかな？えい。
There might be a faulty dildo just
あ、出た。
waiting to
デ
cost
ィル
the
ドって言って
company
る。ちょっ
millions in lawsuits.
と。ディルドって言って
John would have to test them all.
ディルドって言ってる。
The prostate
あ、
pounder
すごい。違う
X900
種類のディルドが出てきた。
the most advanced
Ah,すごい。
vibrator on the market.
黄色いディルドは家になかったな。
Every atom of John's
待っ
rectum
て、
began
テ
to
スト、
vibrate.
バイブのテスト50個するのやばない？
Pleasure. His orifice was a paradise. This vibrator would end all wars.
お尻の穴が広がっちゃうよ。
Sweet mother of no, John, that's too much pleasure for one anus to handle. あ、え？やばい。やばいって、やばいって。あ、待って、爆破したんだけど。 John's butt hurt, but his
ア
heart
プ
was
ライ
proud.
バンド
If that
エイド。
vibe had gotten out into the world,
Oh,
it could have
band
injured a
aid
customer
が
as
取れない。
badly as it had ravaged his anus.
ちょっと待って待って、お尻に入ってる。バンドエイド取れなくない？なんか上司降りてきた。
The boss arrived and congratulated John on taking one for the team
ブーブー言ってる。
and jumping on the hand grenade.
バンドエイド、
In this
バンドエイド、
case,
バンドエイ
putting
ド
it
だ。
up his butt.
出るんだ。よいしょ。
John was having trouble following the conversation
What?
because he
あ、
was
お
quite
尻に貼るん
high
だ。
on suppository painkillers. And then the boss said it. Promotion. Finally, the company was recognizing John's
すごい
hard
ブーブー言
work
ってる。
and ignoring his minor faults like lack of talent, constant lateness, and flatulence. John's new office smelled like polished wood and success.
Make the space
John's success.
your own.
Sam dropped by. He'd heard John had been hurt. John said he was fine. He wasn't a softie to complain about a mildly ruptured rectum. Besides, he had a promotion to celebrate. John had met Sam in college during a sports ball game. He'd given him some stiff competition.
いけいけいけいけいけいけ。け、頑張れ。ああ。ダメダメダメダメ。やめろ。やめろ。け、噛んだ。いけいけいけいけいけ。ここここここ。
Not stiff enough. They'd started at Flesh Corp product testing together. Nothing builds a friendship like a long day of dildo
同僚なんだ
hunting.
これ。やばいって。
Yes, John had known Sam for a while.
これをナ
But
レー
John couldn't hang out with
ショ
Sam.
ンして
He had a
る
reunion to prepare for. He was going out with Barbara
人はどう
tonight.
思ってんだ
He
ろうな。
just had to ask her. Everyone was quiet, listening to the presentation. A good moment for John to ask Barbara out.
寝てるぜよ。Ask Barbara out。起きろ。
That's not Barbara, John. Warmer.
あ、バーバラアウトと。
Barbara agreed. Well, she nodded.
あ、いいんだこれで。
Things were really going John's way.
紙吹雪がさ、
John
頭から
tried
出
to
てくる
act
の
as
なんなん？
suave as possible
あ、
and listen to Barbara talk business. He didn't want to blow his chances at long-term love and short-term sex.
あ、食べれるん
Barbara
だ。
began to talk about monthly
あれ
feedback
飲めないのか
figures,
な？あ、飲
and
めないん
John
だ。
started to zone out, imagining him and Barbara at the reunion, a power couple. She would make his classmates
え、
sick
てか
with
さ、
envy.
あれやない？バーバラ
If
は
he could get her to tone down the boring chatter. John's balls were gripped by certainty.
なんか
Barbara was the perfect date
バーバ
for
ラ
the
とか他の
reunion.
人はさ、show off your skills behind the bar.
John thought he would impress Barbara by going behind the bar and showing the bartender a thing or two. Despite
なんか
Barbara's
みんなさ、
protests
皮む
that
け
it
てる
was
のにさ、
unnecessary, John knew that a
私だ
true
けさ、
gentleman should follow her home.
皮かぶってんだよ。
He was excited.
Walk
There
バ
was
ーバラ
still 3
home.
months until the reunion,
バーバラの家ま
and
で
he'd already landed his perfect date. All he had to do was seal the deal.
ここか。え、待って。
Barbara
See
thanked
that-
John for the evening and politely did
Deal
not
it, man.
invite him inside for coffee.
これ
or
入んの
sex,
かな？入った！
even though John had
入っ
dropped
た！
some
入った！
pretty
入った！
obvious
入った！
hints he'd be into both, or just the sex.
入っちゃった。
The door slammed on John's hopes. He didn't understand. He'd laughed at all Barbara's pie chart jokes.
え、開けて。
He'd listened to her boring
え、
stories.
裏から入ってやろうかな。
The blank eyes of the lawn flamingos were witnesses to John's shame.
入れない。え、ここ、え、なんか、
John began the lonely walk home,
お、
thoughts tumbling like shoes in a dryer.
鳥がいた。
He had done everything wrong. Barbara had led him on just to humiliate him.
入っちゃっ
John
た。
felt empty. How could he get love? He felt like he was missing something. Some key to
犬は普通なんだ。
attracting sex. But John was shooting blanks. What did Peens want?
火星なのかな？
Then it hit John out of nowhere.
え、だってみんな、
He had the success. He just needed to show it off. But where
みんな、
was John going to get all the stuff he wanted? John needed a sign.
みんな、なんかみんなずる向け。
A new
But-
day, a new John. He waited outside his local buttload store for it to open, eager to spend his promotion bonus on stuff. best way
wait
to
until
impress women.
opening time. OK? これ ATM だ。
If it was buttloads of stuff John wanted, then he would need buttloads of cash.
お金だ。お金どうしよう。あ、違う。だ。いや、こっちから行こう。ケビン死んでない？あ、待って、引っかかっちゃう。やばい、引っかかる。これ引っかからない。頭からいったら、頭じゃない、ケツからいったらいけるのでは？いけなくない？待って、挟まる。待って、挟まるんだけど、ちぎれちゃうよ。Go through to turns style。やめて。ブブブしないで。待って、無理じゃない？飛んできたいな、正直。ちょっと、挟まるよ。弾が挟まるって。挟まるんだけど。無理じゃない？メガネとかかけらんないのかな？かけらんないよ。お手本見せてほしいな。いや、挟まっちゃう。どうすんのこれ。椅子使う。あ、待って。待って、挟まっちゃうって。なんか、いけ。これいけないって。待って、これ。これ、一切ができないんだけど。待って。どうするんこれ。お前、弾がでかすぎるんよ、きっと。弾がでかすぎて。
Suddenly it occurred to John that he was going to make a lot of choices. And every one of those choices would tell the world who he was. Did he want cheese or sausage?
チーズ食べたい。
Delicious.
Delicious.
Also delicious. How could John decide?
まだ食べれる。
So Moorish. Maybe one more. What would a date think when they sat in John's home? Comfort or style?
どっちにしよっかな。でも、こっちの方がよくない？将来性を考えたら。こっちがいいけどな。倒しちゃった。
Nothing says style like an overpriced and uncomfortable chair. John weighed up all the differences, but this was a tough choice.
これでこう持ってけばいい
John
のか。
chose the extremely, obviously bad TV.
うるさいな、じゃあこっちがいいな。
John realized that it was only 2 months and 29 days until the reunion. Time flies. Cactus
こっちがいい。
or rose? Was John a rugged hero or a romantic poet? If John grew his own flowers, then he'd save on romantic gestures in the long run.
いや、
There was nothing John could take with him to the grave.
チンチンに骨格標本みたいなのがある。でこっちのいい方にするか、やっぱ。
Except his coffin. Death is inevitable.
こっちの方がいいよな。
Style is not. John liked to get his pizza delivered. That way he could see
パイナッ
Delilah
プル
the
フリ
delivery
ーか。
queen. She always made him
フ
smile.
リーパイナップルか。こっちにする。
Delilah thought pineapple on pizza was gross. This way she would never know John's shameful tastes. What bedding would Delilah prefer?
ちょ
John
っとこっちの方が好
couldn't
きだ
help
な。
wondering.
こっちにするか。
Pizza sheets would show her
ちゃん
that
とみどり
John
さん
could
こんばん
also
は。
deliver in
これ
bed.
はある
Devoid of
ある
any
男
sense
の
of style,
一
buying
生
new clothes
の
would
ストー
be
リーみ
John's
たいな。
toughest challenge. John felt sharp and also
違いない。
like a phony. A nice fit, but could John pull off the collar?
これいいな。
John decided to go with the outfit.
これ今日はあんまり深く考えないゲームで
The
す。
food of love. Should John go retro
やっぱこの服にしたからにはこっち
sophisticated
でしょ。
or just retro? John was sure he could just pirate extra records. Every can was made of metal, pulled from the bones of the earth,
これは
wrestled
から
to
ん。なん
the
だろ
surface, and
う。なんかの缶
smelted
詰
in
だ。
roaring furnaces. All so John could buy peas preserved in salty water and stick them up his butt.
おお、めっちゃ買い物
John's
し
new
た。
purchases were on the way to his apartment. All he had to do was invite a date over. One look at all his stuff, and they'd be overwhelmed with sexual
So-
desire. John felt
あ、お
proud
尻のあれかばっ
and
てん
also
か。
hungry. It gave him an idea. He should invite Delilah
見た目
over
が
for
完全
dinner.
に。私ら男性の息子に見える。そんなまさか。
John was excited. Delilah was on her
何の
way.
缶詰かわ
He
かんな
just
い。
needed to set the mood to romance.
ロマンス。
Classy.
キャンドル。ブーじゃなくて。あ、マッチ。ちょっと待って、そこでつけたらあかん。ちょっと待って。火事になんない？大丈夫かな？はい。ちょっとこれやばいな。火事になっちゃうな。消化するか。ケツで。ミュージック。これはね、こっちのね、頭の方がいいんですよ。ローズズ。バラ？
John hoped she didn't have allergies.
あ、もっと。持っとけ、持っとけ。
That must
ちゃん
be
と持っとけ。
Delilah at the door.
あ、すいませんね、すいません。今行きます。ゲッツザドア。
The door opened and there
オ
was
ファー
Delilah.
ワイン。
John gulped down his nerves and invited her in. John could tell that Delilah was
すごい喜
impressed by
んで
his
る。
stuff. It was time to crank up the mood to seduction. John wanted to offer Delilah wine, but he'd already popped his cork. Delilah started looking as nervous as John felt. He assumed it was because she was shy too. They really were compatible. Of course, at the reunion, he couldn't mention Delilah was a delivery peen. That would be
オファーってなん
embarrassing.
だ？
Delilah
Wow,
suddenly headed for the door. And just like that, John was alone again. Delilah hadn't even looked at his stuff. Not even the pizza bedspread. The rejection burned. John felt insignificant. He had everything he wanted. The job, the money, the stuff.
Destroy it all.
He wanted to destroy all of it.
全員
Shove
殺
it
せ。
into the abyss. His
す
stuff,
べてを破壊しろ。
He was a shark.
すべてを破壊しろ。
A lonely
Okay.
piston pumping away like all the others in his rigid place. Nothing special about him. Why should Delilah or Barbara or any other peen be interested in
おお、すごい
dating
すごい
him?
すごいすごいす
He
ご
was
い。
just like everyone else and they could tell. Stupid records. John wanted to be
お
special,
お
but he had to face the numb truth.
おお、すごいすごいすごい
And
すご
all
い
the。money and stuff he'd
え、
ever
めっちゃ
accumulated
ピザ。
wouldn't change that. He
おお、
thought it
楽
would
し
make
い。
him unique, but it just made him more like everyone else. He should leave it all. Get out of this little town and go on an adventure. See the world. He was a boring corporate
いけい
drone,
けいけい
but
け
he
いけ
didn't
い
have to
け。
be. He could be a traveler, exploring jungles and climbing
ほら、
mountains.
お尻にいる。
He could visit the wonders of the world and get his picture taken. Like Peony Island, the unspoiled paradise he'd seen on TV.
Begone, boxes.
That was it.
Oh.
John had to travel. Bags packed, John was ready to put 5,000 miles between him and his problems. He was leaving it all behind.
と、これを、荷物を、ぽい。ついでに私も乗るか。
John was so close, he could almost smell the freedom of the skies. Security sent John
エ
back
ン
through the
ティポ
detector.
ケット。ポケットなんかお前、
John
な
had forgotten
んか
he
出
had
て
his
きたんだけど。
mail tickets with him. He'd have to buy another pair soon,
こ
or
れまた
he'd
入るん
look
かな。もう入らんのか。
ridiculous.
そんなもん入れてたのか、お前。あ、やばい、私より皮かぶって
When
るや
the
ついる。
acceleration of takeoff had slackened, John felt a sweet relief. He had left his worries on the runway. He was up in the clouds on his
ね、
way
なんか、
to
なんか
adventure.
ハエみたいなのが。ハエみたいなのたかってる人いるけど。
John's adventure had
もしかしてこれ
begun at
さ、
last, and clearly it was a small world after all, and
入らな
also
い。
a flat one.
お前ら入らないの
That
か。
was going to piss
Is
off the globeheads.
エクスペリエンス・ザ・ワンダーズ。ワンダーズ、エクスペリエンス・ザ・ワンダーズということ？あ、泳げる。え？ブクブクしてる。あ、いたいたいたいたいた。あ、いた。ゼロライクスっていうのが何とも言えんよ。あ、やめて、やめて。やめてください。痛い。痛い。森林伐採をしてしまった。あ、待って、船が沈む。ハリウッドだ。あ、入るかな？入らないや。入るかどうかは一回試さないともう気が済まない、シンプルに。ペンギンだ。え、どうすればこれいいんだ？あ、いたたたたたた。痛々しい。痛い痛い痛い痛い痛い痛い。おう。こんにちは。エクスペクティブはお金が減った。え、お尻が入った。あ、なるほどね。いろんな経験をね、しろってね。ことか。積極的にお尻に詰め込めばいいってことではない。 てをお尻に入れればいいということではない。いや、でもそういうことっぽいな。あ、6ついた。あ、ちょっと待って。入っちゃう。お尻に入っちゃう。お尻に入っちゃうよ。え、ピサのシャトー入るんかな。入らん。あ、入った。え、とりあえず
John was having
お
fun.
尻に全部入れてけってこと？
Something told him he needed to go home. Probably his empty bank account. John was on his way back home. He was out of money, but money can't buy love.
長いな。
What it can buy are the experiences that had made John a more interesting and developed person, with 100 Buckstagram photos to prove it. Finally, everything was
いろんな形の人がいるね。
John
でも
felt
ワンダー
good
な
to
体
be
験をした
back
わ
on。 the familiar ground of home, but he would feel better to be on
男
the
が配信にの
familiar
男がなんか
mattress
嘆い
of
てる。
home.
どうしよう、困ったな。コレクトラ、私のカバン。
That's not John's bag.
あ、違うの、これじゃない。これは？あれかな。これだ。カバンちゃんと持ってかんと。ブブブブしてる。
Despite John's swell of fresh
キャッチ
optimism,
バス
traveling
ホー
was
ム。
exhausting, and
Hi.
he just really wanted to get home and get some sleep.
帰るか。これじゃメス落ちしちゃうよ。go to the go to the item. Press A to pull from これか。で Eat your lunch. お尻でえいえい。飴も食べろ。食べれんの？ Press A to pull from Find your locker. あなたのロッカーを見つけろ。どれ？もしかしてこれ。いじめられてる。Take the love letter to her locker. 彼女のロッカーに入れろ。あ、すごい。バラなんかわかんないけど。あ、この人ね。チンチンにピアスが。
Another nightmare. John's stress about getting a date for the reunion was making him think of her. Harmony. He hadn't seen her in years. Would she be at the reunion? John shook off the thought. He wasn't a child. He was a fully grown penis. John, why is the bathroom barricaded?
本当だ、バリケードが。
Forskin's sake, is that a swan?
ガチョウ。
John had no idea how it had gotten into his home or why it hated him so much.
なんだ
It
な
would
んだ
probably be best to leave it alone.
やばいよ。うんこされてるし。いた。しらせん、やっぱり可愛いですね。どこ、今、何が可愛い要素だったんだろう、今。どういうこと？家具も何もなくなってる。テレビもない。
John's butt started to buzz. Had he left a vibrator up there? Whatever it was, he should get it out.
どこだ？あ、
John's old phone. They really were indestructible. It was Sam calling.
He wanted to check in on John. The travel looked fun, but it was so sudden. Was John okay? Sam was such a softie, always worrying about feelings. John had only one feeling, and it was the feeling of being awesome. He could drop Sam a text, but John was on a mission. The reunion was getting closer, and he had to get a date. Fortunately, John knew exactly where to find love.
いや、これ英語な、ちゃんと分かればもっと面白いんだろうけどな。後で、日本語訳から調べてみてください。うわが可愛かったんだ。なるほどね。
John held his breath. He was about to meet his match. He had to reassure himself he could do this. He had a good job. He had nice stuff. He had traveled. He was ready to find love.
Find
On
パーフェクトマ
Where
ッ
all
チ。
his sexy travel photos would give him the pick of the pack.
あ、これってティンダ
Hot. Too skinny.
ー。いや、いい形をしてると思う。いやでも違うんやな。
Too much foreskin. Sexy.
あ、この人いいじゃん。
Very nice.
でも自分より大きい人ってどうなんだろうね。こう主人公的には違うかもしれない。ちょっと皮がなくなってるな。皮がな。
Bangs. Nice shaft.
チンダー。ファインパーフェクトマッチ。そうね、皮が。
Yep, the pick of the
皮
pack.
が。Get any match. あ、この人いいじゃん。目に合わせた数時間。
Yes,
Oh!
John had the pick of the pack.
Get any match. やったー。ジェイさんのこと普通に好きなのでありがとう。
John valued honesty in a
わ
date.
ー、でもやだ
He'd been expecting a different
ごめ
kind
んな
of
さい。
dirty,
無理で
a
す。
sexy
汚い。
and much more
汚い。
hygienic.
汚いの無理なんです。汚いの無理なんです。やめてください。やっぱり清潔感大事だって。マリア35歳。何色がいいかな。ピン
John
クが
was
いいな。
scared of getting circumcised so late in life.
おお。おめちゃむずい。めちゃむずい。
Oh,
あ
better put that on ice.
あね、死んじゃっ
You
た。
okay, John? Chick stick scars. I hope.
待って、私の半身が。ルーシー31歳。
After the reattachment surgery, the doctors had told John to rest. So he did.
Eh?
For 6 hours.
行くか。映画が好きなのか。ファインダー C 席を見つけろ。ここかな。映画ではない。コメディーショー。
John was in stitches.
27歳。シングル。あ、お母さんですか。
Karen had invited John straight over.
どうぞ。
She was not fooling around. Very exciting. And now she wanted him round the back.
後ろに行くの。子供めっ
Let
ち
John
ゃお
know
る
that the cake was only for the kids. So was the candy and the piñata. And that she'd be back in 1 hour.
子供見てろってこと？子守じゃねえ方だろ。チンチンだ。えい。ただの子守じゃん。 みんな寝た。24歳。はいはいはい。
John laughed at Melody's hilarious bullfrog story. She was adorable. Everything was going perfectly.
ねねねねねねねねねねねねね。まずいって、まずいって。ああ、飛ばされた。
John never saw Melody again.
41歳。
So far, Weena had been a parade of weirdos and rejections. If this date didn't work out, John vowed to give it up. But maybe this time, maybe today would be his day.
なんて読むんだろう。名前が。
Sharona
あ、い
sighed
た。
and said,
シャローナ。
"You'll do."
行くか。え？これは何ロードですか？シャロン。take seat, don't
John felt a little underdressed and a lot
miss
overwhelmed.
your
He
date.
was surrounded by strangers, and Sharona
席を
was
見つけろ。
glaring at the muscular groom.
あった。
At least John hadn't missed out on the cake. John realized that Sharona had only brought him to create some penis envy. What a terrible plan, for so many reasons. John got
あ、これ結婚式
excited. They
か。
were going to cut the cake.
ケイ
He's mine, Sharona screamed as she launched herself at the newlyweds.
Suddenly, penises were up and yelling.
待って、
No,
殺して
he's
ね。
mine. It was a
Get
no
the-
holds barred cockfight.
ヒックアウトってね、死ぬ死ぬ死ぬ。やばい、殺される。ああ。まずいって。ああ。死んじゃう。やめて。帰ろう。なんか切られても動いてる
John
やつ。
dodged flying glasses and cake. He felt a stab of envy.
まあ、やばいって。
Dozens of penises after him, and John had none. It was just wrong.
ヘックアウトってなんだ？いや、帰ろう。
John left the screams and explosions behind him. It was a disastrous end to his online dating.
パンダ。
He had tried everything, and it just wasn't good enough. He wasn't
あ、
good
入った。
enough. Swans was so simple. If you gave them bread, they liked you. But you can't take a swan to a reunion.
えい。ひどい目にあったな。曲げてた？なんかないかな、他に。他に何もなさそう。ケールか。鳥のもみで。あ、待って、まずい。引かれちゃう。ああ。
John wanted what that groom
あの
had.
鳥さ、入るんじゃない？入った。
Real love. The kind that makes penises fight to the death.
やばい。やばい。やばい。悪い人たちがいる。やめて。ああ。いた。キャッチサーバース。とっとと乗ろう。テイク、あ、シャワー。
Days later, the question was still bugging John.
あ、ひどい目にあっ
Why
た
were
って
so
感
many
じ。
penises in love with the groom? But no one loved John.
Do the dishes.
It wasn't fair. John deserved
Do
attention.
the
He
dishes の
had
ご飯
money
食べる
and
こと。
Bookstagram pics of his adventures. He even still had quite a lot of stuff. What did that penis have that John didn't?
違うのかな。 通座実施じゃない。どういうことだってばよ。違うのか。なんだろう。何すればいいんだろう。ご飯食べろじゃないのかな。いた。ご飯じゃなさそう。こう、パイナップル食べれないんだ。出ちゃう ?Watch some TV.
Then it hit John. That penis was so strong and hard. That's what everyone wanted. That's what John wasn't. That's what John had to be to find love. It was time to hit the gym.
ジムに行くの？ヒットザサックって何？あ、サックってあれ？
John arrived at his local gym. A part of him couldn't believe he was here. He just wasn't a gym penis. But John had tried everything else. If he wanted to get the perfect date, he'd need to sign up.
Wait for gym to the
What was he
open.
doing here? Of course, Sam was married. John's theory was right.
これさ、
If you get muscles, you get love.
あれかな？できんかな？
Out of nowhere, Sam
ダメそう。
asked John how he was doing.
出てこなさそう。
Really doing. For a moment,
あれ
John
か。
wanted to be honest. But he didn't come to gym to be a softie. John was here to get hard.
お、あ、いた。行くぞ。いざジム
It
へ。
was John's first time in a gym since school. He tried not to read too much
ゲ
into
ッ
that.
トはメンバーシップ会員になりなさい。はい。会員になりたいんですけ
Sam
ど。
went on ahead with a chip promise to meet up with John and Sam.
会員になりたいんですけ
John
ど。
had two options. He could try month by month, or if he
これか。
signed the 10-year Big Muscles Big Savings contract,
やっぱ
he'd get a free
やるからに
easy
は。
squeezy water bottle. John wasn't a sucker. He knew the importance of hydration.
これもしかしてお尻？あ、お尻か。まあいいや、行くか。
The gym's clean peen pool policy meant that John would have to do something he had never done before. Get naked in front of strangers. Maybe he could set a record for speediest cleanse.
みんな裸だ。ゲットネイキッド。裸になれ。はい。
Naked, John could feel the blanket of steam intimately
shower
against his
か。
private parts.
ハバーシャ
John
ワー。
pretended
や
he
め
was
て。
alone and not
めっちゃ
surrounded
来る
by
んだけど、
Ricky
なんかめっ
and
ちゃ
cocks.
くっついてくる。
What was John nervous about? That he would be laughed at?
何
There was nothing funny about a naked
なんだよ。
penis.
Put on swim 水着
Very fetching, John. It even matches your taglines. Time to conquer the pool.
お、来た
Sam enthusiastically greeted John and offered to show him around.
新
Obviously not
13
realizing that John was a natural athlete.
レンス
The pool was
Lens.
like baptism, the icy water washing away John's flabby flab. He found
Coca.
his stroke, gliding through the water
13 レーン
like
泳げっ
an
てこ
eel
と
with large, ungainly testicles. John stuck close to Sam, just to make sure Sam knew John could swim. Not because John was
13
worried
往
about
復
drowning.
13
No,
回泳ぐのきつ
this
くね
wasn't hard. John couldn't believe Peens actually got gold medals just for splashing around.
しょっぱなから飛ばすと
Maybe
後が
he could
辛いと
become
思
an
うんだけど
Olympian. He was slowing down a bit, flailing a bit.
But John pushed on, knowing that looking good in a Speedo was the only thing that could save him from an empty existence. John wanted
お
to
ならで
take
加
a
速でき
break
るやん、そういえば。
forever. The pool was not his friend. It was not the blissful wet dream of his fantasies. It was a hellish prison of murderous fluid, determined to drown him. No
お、なん
wonder
か出て
life
きた。
crawled out of the sea, desperate to escape the water. Done. John had not drowned, but more importantly, he had not quit. Time to hit the weight room. John's muscles bunched and bulged. The time in the gym was already paying off.
マジで足つりそうだよ。
Fresh from
13
conquering the pool, John felt ready for anything the gym could throw at him,
これ
even heavy metal weights. Clearly, John knew how to handle equipment.
え、むずくね。頑張れ。
Sam cheered
頑張れ。
John on, as if he
頑張れ。
needed it.
なんか数が増えない。やばいやばい。
Adrenaline coursed through John's
むずい
veins,
な。
his butthole clenched like a fist. John smashed the mirror.
頑張れ。
He didn't want to look at his old body.
頑張れ。
He wanted to be
なんか入っちゃった。待って、なんか入っちゃった。え、ちょっと根詰めすぎじゃない初回から。これが俗に言うチントレか。
John was forging himself into the peen he saw on movie screens,
Okay,
bulging
頑張れ。
and sweat slicked, hard and shiny. Boom! John was cocked and loaded.
待って、入っちゃった、また。
Ever get out of
待
bed?
って待って。
The stream of encouragement was exhausting.
ディオ。
John, getting flung from fast-moving objects since preschool.
こっちは。
Slow
だね。
and steady.
だね。
That's right,
フィ
John.
ットネスをさせろ。
Or pouring gravy. That had gotten John's heart rate up and his life expectancy down. John was sweating like a senator on a sex tape, but he wasn't done.
肛門
Sam
活
was in
躍
the
筋を
zone,
鍛え
a
ろってこ
mental
と？
state where nothing else mattered. Well, John could be in that zone too. He could be in that zone deeper than Sam, and he'd prove it. Sam made this look so easy. John squashed the thought. He'd just have to push harder. John tried to make eye contact with Sam, get in his head a bit. Sam didn't seem to notice John, but John could tell Sam was impressed. Even though he still hadn't looked at John, not that it mattered to John, because John was in the zone, deep in the zone.
ビートサムって何？
Sam didn't react to John. This room was different. This room was for focus. This room was for your butthole. Sam congratulated John for trying and told him it was okay to take things slow, as if John was going to quit. Well, he wasn't. John had a mission, and the reunion was getting closer.
やべえ。ガラスも割ったし。まずいって。Turn your body. ジョギング、水泳、プール。頑張れ。はい頑張れ。で、食べろ。働け。これって働いてんのかな。 ね、うんち出してるうんちを出しながらトレーニングすな。プル食べろ。働け。あ、これうんち出てる、うんち出てる、これうんち出てます。うんち出てるって。うんち出てるって。うんち出てるって。あああああああ、まずいまずい、チンチンがどっか行った。まずい、どうしよう、チンチンがどっか行った。え、待って、チンチンどっか行っちゃった。え、どうしよう、チンチンどっか行っちゃったんだけど。ちょっとリスタートチャプターだな、これ。チンチンやり直します。いや、その無茶なね、反動つけるからいけないんですよ、このゲーム。いけ。ね、こうしてこうしてチンチンぶっ飛んだんだが、えい、働け。やばい、うんち出てきた、うんち出てきたって、うんち出てきたってうんち出てきたって。はいはいはい、デストロイザーチキン出せ、もう出して、出しながら仕事しろ。まだ出てない、まだ出てない、なんだって。あ、やばい、出ちゃった。えいえい、パウンドだ、プロテイン。あと1個。チキンそういう部屋おお。Go to the right. Go to the left. Go up. 持ち上げろ。クロスタロー。待って待って、屍が。いけ、よしよし。これ学校時代の思い出みたいな、あれか、夢の中で見るのか、昔のあれと混ざりながら。まずい、私の死体が。いけいけ、よし。これにやろっか、これか。えっとこ Go through the door on the left. ダメじゃん。 まあ、邪魔だし地味に重いし。なんだ。ゴーストゥザドアオンザライト。結局死ぬんじゃん。ゴーツザここ？インプレスハーって何？No one will ever love you. 待って、えぐいって、もう絶対長くなるのやめてほしいんだけど。
As soon as John woke up, the mirror called to him. His abs looked like a pack of vacuum-sealed hot dogs. Tasty. Jim had remade John into a sculpted Adonis.
だってムキムキになってる。
He was finally everything a king should be,
successor.
Traveled and photogenic.
あ、
It was time for his morning pre-June
ファインダーデー
workout.
ト。見る。あ、飼うことにしたんだ。見るってご飯。どういうこと？なんか注射もやってるのこいつ。やばいって。
The reunion invitation caught John's eye.
リリーインバイト。
He read it again
読み直す。
and again. Stunned. He'd got the date wrong. Very wrong. The reunion was tonight. Tonight!
招待状読み直すってこと？
They'd all be there, and they'd look at John and they'd know he was still a loser. No, there was still time. John needed a date fast. He'd have to go out. He'd have to make an
Get
impact.
change his
John had to dress his best.
Clubs.
Better. Is this sending the right message? Oh my, John. Welcome to the gun show.
ピアスついたけど。
This isn't the time for comfort, John. That's a choice, I suppose.
これで1個。ヒットザクラブスって何？
There had to be someone
わからないので
single
外に出
and
ます。
desperately alone in the city. Someone besides John. He just had to find them. John went straight to the nearest bar. Sure, it was still early, but he couldn't waste any time. There must be some day drinkers he could pick up.
やば。威嚇されてる。いった。痛い。やばい、不良に。
It was a classy place. Even the vomit was high quality.
あ、ここか。クラブって。
The bouncer looked like a hagfish that had taken up
えっと。
lacrosse.
ちょっとね。
John stepped into the bar and saw her. The answer to the question, what was John's purpose? Her. Loving her. Being with her.
What
Taking
the
her
heck?
to the reunion. Their eyes met and John knew she felt the same. Gladys did not feel the same. But John wasn't going to give up on their life together. A couple of drinks would loosen her up to their destiny.
Press B to... こっちじゃない。B? こは、あ、
Wow. Gladys was not an amateur when it
そう
came
な
to
るんだ。
drinking. John had to keep up.
ゲッチンク。飲め。buy another round of drinks. こうか。
It was working. Gladys was definitely warming up to John.
4本飲めってこと？
John's bladder was very full. It sloshed audibly as he moved.
Find the restroom. 地下。何を見つけろって？あ、空いてるところ見つけろってことか。
Holy balls. John had never felt such relief.
帰るか。
John looked around. Gladys was gone. John cursed his petite
あの女
bladder.
の子どっか行っちゃったけど。Ask the bartender.
The bored bartender shrugged and told John Gladys had left because some creep was trying to get her drunk.
Find this creep. クリープって何？
The bar was empty. The creep must have left too. It was clear the cockpit was on autopilot. Time for John to hit the next bar. John's anxiety had sunk under the surface of the beer he'd drunk, while his confidence was floating high. This was the place he'd find love.
あの中入んの？いった。マジで治安悪すぎる。
It was empty, except for the bartender. Clearly this bar's only special was unhappy hour.
Buy a drink.
2 for 1 was a good deal though, and so far the beer had lifted John's spirits. Another 4 would make him feel twice as good.
飲んでいいのかなこれ。buy another 2 beers. 飲むか。
The bartender gave John a smile that set his heart hammering. He had to impress her.
Tip the bartender. チップ？Give an even lagerら読めない。あ、
What was so offensive
that's
about
what I
offering a big tip in exchange for a date? John had thought bartenders loved tips. He needed to find a better club, one with a vibe. John was drawn by the pulse of the music. It pulled him forward like a moth to a fiery death. John was running out of time to find a date and prove that he wasn't a loser. Dancing, the real way to flirt, the way of animals, of wild sexual
find a
creatures.
space to
John
dance.
strutted and shook
スペー
his
ス、ダンス
fist.
するスペース見つけろ。
With booze buzzing round his head, John found himself on the dance floor.
Hello.
Everyone was up close
Hello.
and sweaty. John was
Patan.
exhilarated. He felt alive.
.難しいの？
John was working himself up to try a little bump and grind. It was a moment out of a movie.
John alone on the dance floor with a gorgeous penis, their sexual chemistry exploding.
Dance with her. 彼女と踊れ。
She moved away, coyly. John could tell when someone was playing hard to get. He let her marinate in the tension before making his move.
こうか。Make your move.
John wasn't taking no for an answer.
なにやめて。
Some people have no sense of fun, but John was certain the next bar would be different. The next bar wasn't different. John couldn't understand why everyone was so sensitive.
頑張れ。
It was like no one wanted to have a good time. Like no one had a sense of humor. John had meant that as a compliment. When did the world get so uptight? John's ego was as bruised as his shaft. He had to admit it. He'd failed. He was where he belonged. Oh, that's gross. Oh, it's so moist, but textured. It smells like rotting dick yogurt. John's misery was sour in his mouth.
What?
He needed a drink to wash it down. There was still one bar he
固形
hadn't
物まで
been
入ってる。
kicked out of yet. John had cleaned himself up as much as possible. He really needed a mint. John got it in, but he needed more to satisfy the machine.
Select min.
John let out his anger, his frustration. Life was a shitty joke. It wasn't fair. You want to mess with John? Do you? This is what you get.
なるほどね。
You, you fucking
はい。
thing.
手に入らないからってことね。
You had
Destroy.
one job. Die,
Pass it.
die, 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 die! That's how you get what you want.
やば。
Menthol.
待って出られない。玉が引っかかって出られない。邪魔これ。よいしょ。
John wanted the strongest drink they had.
飲め。
Rough night? Someone asked John. He hadn't noticed her when he came in, but now he did. It really had been a rough night for John, but he felt a little better that someone cared enough to ask.
Make a
It was a
move.
pity they were only sort of attractive. But destiny had given John a second chance.
Make a move.
John made his move. Unfortunately,
これがわからん。
according to Alice and to her boyfriend Chadrick, it was the wrong move.
ガビッて。また追い出された。
Chadrick threw John
I know.
into the alley and followed, making unoriginal but still terrifying
こい
threats.
つ殺さなきゃ。
Oh my god! Ouch!
Press X to hit back. X ってどれだ。
Get him, John!
こうか。
I can't watch. Don't hold back.
いけ。
Give it to him.
やっちまえ。
Brutal. John had survived. No, he'd won.
オーバーキルだ。
Won. He'd won. He wasn't a loser. And there was the proof lying in a bruised, bloody heap. John didn't need a date to the reunion. He needed to go over there and beat the pre-cum out of those dicks. High school reunion, the perfect time to teach someone a lesson.
Get out of here. ここから、あ、そこか。行きましょう。うわ、不良が。
The doors of the school. A sight John had dreaded every day for years, and now he was going willingly through them, unafraid, fueled by years of unprocessed anger fermented in loneliness. John was back. The chickens were coming home to roost, and they were all cocks.
Find 人名
These were the peanuts he'd grown up with, now with jobs and marriages and beer bellies. John was surprised at how ordinary they had all turned out. He spotted them, John's tormentors. Time for them to feel the wrath.
どういうこと？
John gave them a chance to apologize.
こちら殺せってこと？やってやるよ。ああ、やった一応ずるいぞ。やめて。いけ。お前のジムの成果見せてやれ。あ、なるほどね。この場外にこいつら出せってことか。殺せばいいだけでは。いや、こっちじゃダメなのか。こいつ強いな。ダン強かったな。やばー。勝利の祝杯。そして誰もいなくなったみたいな。どうしろってやのこれ。どうしろってやのこれ。どうしろってやの。え、何これマジでどうしろって言うの？全てが消えたんだけど。ここのチンチンになってしまったけど、どうするんだろうこれ。なんかとりあえずボタン押してるけどみたいな。 もう一回やっとく。あ、これ死体だ。これ死体だ。どうすればいいんだろう、このゲーム。えちょ。
The doors of the school. A sight John had dreaded every day for years, and now he was going willingly through them.
ちょっとわからないのでもう一回やりま
Fueled
す。
by years of unprocessed anger fermented in loneliness. John was back.
いくぞ。
The chickens were coming home to roost, and they were all cocks. These were the peanlets he'd grown up with, now with jobs and marriages and beer bellies. John was surprised at how ordinary they had all turned out. He spotted them, John's tormentors. Time for them to feel the wrath. Pow! Fight back, John! Get in there!
どういうことだってばよ。こいつらを殺すんだろ。
Shake off the pain, buddy. Ha! Who's a loser now? Who? Dodge! Ow!
レイヤー。なんか画面外に
Careful!
とりあえずぶっ飛ばして出すこ
John
とが
poured his anger into every punch.
あれでしょ。
Whoa! Don't let up.
これ誰に用があったの？そういえば確かに。
How do you like that?
お前か？お前に用があったんけ？
That's the stuff, John.
あ
Ha! John had won. He'd won. No one could say John was a loser now.
あ、進んだ。
John's primal joy faded as he saw how the other penises looked at him. Not like a winner, like he was trash. John tumbled down the steps, hitting every bruise on his length and his ego. It was her, Harmony. She had been at the reunion. She'd seen it all and followed John out. To laugh at him more? No, to see if he was all right. Why did that hurt John so much? This was John's chance to ask her why all those years ago she'd said to him, "No one will ever love you." Harmony stared at John in shock. How could John not know why? Didn't John remember what he'd done?
Ah! あれなんか多分主人公がビリーだよね。で 高校時代にいじめられてて、それを同窓会でそれを見返すために、なんか鍛えたりとかいろいろしてたみたいな。なんか、食べちゃったリンゴ。一回これあれだな。これリスタートしないとダメだね。この虫食いリンゴ食べるんだみたいな。あなた、これアップルじゃなくない？蜂が出てきた。交通座、こうか。Ask her out。わわわわわわわ伸びてる。うわわわわわわ。6時間。プレイヤー
There was nothing Sam enjoyed more than the fresh air of an early morning.
2とは
The dew sparkling on the grass,
Ask
the music of the
French
trees,
Premier
space to think.
やつらしきあ
Sam stared at the view.
何が悲しくて2人用のゲームを1人でやらなければいけないのか。は切れそう。ほら餌だよ。
Sam did love to feed the majestic swans by the pond.
おたれ
What was that smell? It made Sam's eye water. It was John, passed out and crusted with vomit and regret.
大丈夫か。プリアイチスティック、はい。
John was awake and tolerably clean. Sam tried to be gentle and invited John to join him on his walk.
あ、一緒に歩け。うわわわわわ。
Sam coaxed John along. It was like herding compost.
Press X to wake John up. ジョンを叩き起こす。ジョン
couldn't answer Sam's
ジョン
questions
歩みが
yet.
遅い。
How had he ended up such a wreck?
ゲロ吐いてるから歩みが遅い。よし。また起こす。ほっ トドッグがある。プレスビーツスクエアマニー。それともお金払った。
Sam couldn't resist the tasty treat. He should save one for John.
肉しか食べてないじゃん。
John immediately felt better, but his head was still pounding, and not in a good way.
入ってる入ってる。プレスビーツスクエアマニー。はい。お金を払います。こっちか。
The throbbing ache dulled. John was feeling much more himself, and he realized that was not what he wanted to feel.
服着替えたくない？着替えらんないか。行くか。あ、待って、あ、待って、あ、待って、待って、やっちゃった。
Even that bit of senseless destruction couldn't cheer John up. Sam saw his friend's misery.
やべやべ。
He suggested they
ち
keep
ょっと待って。
going.
ちょっと待って。で、こうだ。行くか。ビーツスパフヒーリングス B。 あっ、
John wanted to know something. Why didn't anyone love him? As soon as he said it, he felt like a softie, whining about his
待って待って、
feelings.
橋から落ちちゃった。うんち持ってたし。はっ、チンチンがある。えい。めっちゃ長くない？思ってたより長くてなんも言えないんだけど今。いけ。プレスビースポンスジョン。
But Sam didn't make fun of him. Sam asked him to go on. And so John told him the whole story about how hard he'd made himself and how unfair it felt, and everything he'd done.
ボリュームがかなりあるんだけど、これで72円ってどうなの？
Saying it out loud, John realized he'd sounded like an asshole. But he'd done everything right. Why didn't he get what he wanted? Why didn't John get love? Wanting someone isn't the same as loving them, said Sam. You'll figure it out, John. But you have to keep trying.
あと1本で8分の8になる。8本分の8本になる。こうか。わからんくなるな。
How about a bike ride? Sam asked.
Money. Get on a bike. Bike. え、バイク 乗った。
John struggled to get his balance, but Sam told
Yaba.
him not to give up. John kept trying, getting better as they went.
いやちょっと事故起きてる。やばい。引っかかった。こっちか。あ、オッケー。子供ちんちんが遊んでる。操作むずいって。おお、ムービーになった。ビーチだ。
John and Sam stopped and looked at the sunset. For a moment, John let himself be quiet and listen to the world and look at how beautiful it could be.
ペンギンがいる。行くか。
Life can be hard, said Sam, but that doesn't mean we have to be.
The end。 終わった。あ、陶芸ができる。あの女の子とどうなったのかがよくわからない。え？ Look after your pet swan。つまりサムと結婚したってこと？結局。ああ。えい。ほら。ウォッチタイタニック。あ、これサムと付き合ったのか。あ、サム友達だったよね、確か。で、彼女はあれな。どうなったん？振られた？ あの子だ。アポロジャイ。え、なんて言えばいいんだろう。Thanks for playing といたしまして。解説見ようかな。ちょっと私、解説見るわ。ということで、今日はね、たくさんいろんなね、小さいチンチンとか大きいチンチンとか長いチンチンとか顔をかぶってるチンチンとかズル向けのチンチンとかいろいろありましたけど、皆さんはどんなチンチンが好きでしたか？ということでね今日は終わっていきたいと思いますそれでは何時間これ約2時間お付き合いいただきありがとうございました。コメントをくださった皆さん、コメントをくださらなくても見てくださった皆さん、アーカイブを見てくださった皆さんもありがとうございました次はもうちょっとまともなゲームのね続きとかねしていきたいと思いますはい、ではお疲れ様でした。またね。